Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined once again by Hall of Fame promoter Frank Warren in your lovely office. Lots of artwork I've seen around. I didn't notice the dolphin. We're not going to pan around and show it, but what was the thinking behind that?
Well, what it is, it's an Ali book, the GOAT, Greatest of All Time book, and they did a special edition, and they got Jeff Koons, the American artist, to put together something unusual as like a presentation stand. And so the dolphin is Jeff Koons, and the stool and the rubber ring, it's all to do with Jeff Koons.
Fair enough. Maybe we'll take a picture of it before we leave and add it in post-production.
It's Flipper. I've got him.
It's Flipper, is it?
Yeah.
I'm the right age to know who that is, luckily.
It's an age thing.
You pitched it right. Obviously, we saw at the weekend Billy Joe Saunders, a fighter who you worked with for a long period of time, still remain relatively close to, I believe. Try his luck against Canelo in a big unification fight. Boxed actually really well in parts, but got a horrendous eye injury in round 8 and was forced, his corner were forced to pull him out at that point. Apparently 3 or 4 fractures to the eye socket. What did you make of his performance and obviously how it ended?
Well, the thing is, Dan, when I think you and I may have spoke about it a while ago, and I obviously got a column in, we do one, was it a couple of newspapers, I got columns in Star and so forth. And I said there, I think he, boxing brain, he could match Canelo for a boxing brain. My only concern all the way through was Billy being strong at super middleweight, find a guy who has won a world title at light heavyweight and come down. And he's a big man. He's a big, strong man, and he looks more and more ripped every time you see him now, Canelo. And that's how the fight panned out. I thought he boxed extremely well. But he just looked too strong for him and too big for him. And that was it. Billy's a middleweight. Billy struggled with his weight because of the way he lived and the problems that he's had in the past. But he is a middleweight. That's what he is. He's a middleweight fighter. It's not super middleweight.
And what did you make of the way the fight concluded? Obviously, you've got experience of a fighter in Daniel Dubois not too long ago having to pull out with a bad eye injury in a similar vein.
Well, we've had a few of these now, haven't we? Happened, as you mentioned with Daniel, Kelbrook. They're terrible injuries. I mean, when you think the corner did the right thing, obviously pulling him out. When you think that Daniel, he fought nearly 7 rounds with the same injury. He went on to fight for 7 rounds, and he was going to be pulled out of the end of that round by Martin Bowers, who was then his trainer, which would have been the right thing to do. And Daniel did the right thing as well in the fight against Joe Joyce. Joe caught him with a great shot in the second round and busted his eye and worked on it. And Joe did what he had to do and boxed extremely well. It was a very close fight between him and Daniel. But at the end of the day, Martin's thing was, go out, see if he could stop him in that round, which obviously he wasn't able to do. And it was what it was. I think the fight, the way it was scored at that time was in Daniel's favour. But Joe done tremendously well. Lived to fight another day. That's what it's all about. The name of boxing. It's not about going and giving your eyesight up. If you was a UFC fighter, you'd tap out.
Yeah.
And everybody has no qualms about that. What I was surprised about was the vitriol that Daniel got. Well, I wasn't surprised actually, especially coming from the Sky TV camp. The likes of some of the presenters and some of the commentators on there, the way they jumped on it and had a right go at Daniel, yet they never mentioned anything. Bill pulled out with the same injury, and Daniel fought on with his injuries, as I've just said. But then I suppose really it's not against him. That's probably vitriol against me, rather than against Daniel. That's how it is. But I don't want to see anybody go blind in boxing, and nor should anybody who's got an ounce of brain.
You mentioned that kind of vitriolic reaction to what happened to Daniel. Billy Joe Saunders, famously, as we found out over the last few days, if we didn't already know, was one of the people criticising him. What do you make of that? Because
Well, I make of it. I was very disappointed with everybody who had something to say. I mean, I didn't know at the time. On that night, I never knew he had the damage he had to his eye. I mean, the operation, they couldn't operate on him anyway until the swelling had gone down in his eye. But obviously, he went to the hospital and he had the examination, he was found to have 2 fractures and a hemorrhage on his retina. Now, you know, I wish you'd have, maybe taken and pulled out earlier. I wish he pulled himself out. But he couldn't do that because he was in front on the cards, and they still felt that he may have the tools to stop Joe. Remember, he sparred with Joe in the past and so on. But Joe's very strong and did what he had to do. I think, you know, with what Bill said, I'm sure he regrets it now.
Yeah.
With what he said, who wouldn't regret it? Especially when the irony is that you've sustained more or less the same injury, and the trainer in there is Daniel's new trainer. It's all quite ironic how it's all turned out, really. But I just feel that people need to be sensible. It's not about giving, losing one of your senses and your faculties to prove something to anybody. Getting in the ring, you're brave enough. Getting to the level you're brave enough to do that. Bill, what was Bill going to do if he'd come out again? There's no way he was going to win that fight at that stage. It was impossible. And the same with Daniel. His vision was badly impaired, and Mike would have pulled him out anyway at the end of the round. So it was all over. And you move on. You live to fight another day.
It was an excellent fight to watch. I think one thing a lot of people were hoping for was that after the fight there might be an announcement about an even bigger fight to come this year, hopefully, between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. There were rumours that Eddie Hearn was potentially going to make an announcement about that fight at the show in Texas. It didn't happen. This is your opportunity now to get ahead of the game.
Well, I'm not even trying to get ahead. I mean, I've hardly made any statements. The only time that I've ever responded to this, Dan, is when I've been asked a question. And every time I get asked a question, I say what the reality is. I'm then accused of being negative, and I don't want the fight, and and all the nonsense that goes down, which I find pretty stupid, really. What is there to say until a contract's signed? And you can only sign a contract when all the parties agree on it. And we've got a contract at the moment that all the parties don't agree on. And we've got a contract at the moment that Tyson Fury will not sign. And one of the things in that contract needs that will enable us to get over the hump is the guarantees. So if the guarantees are there, then it's not a problem. And that's where I'm not even getting down the road of saying where the fight's going to take place, who the negotiations are with or anything, because it's all moot at the moment. And we're now how many months on? 4 months on. We're in, we are where we are. Every day there's going to be an announcement. Well, until we agree to terms, until Tyson Fury, which is who we're with, until he's happy with the terms, it won't get signed, and he's not happy at the moment. I don't know what Anthony Joshua's position is, because we've had nothing to do with that.
Give us an insight then in the difference between all parties being agreed in theory but not actually having signed, and where we are now. Why are the guarantees not what was expected?
Well, it's not the guarantee. What it is signing for the amount is a guarantee for the amount of money that's being paid. And until somebody actually, until there is until Tyson is satisfied that the money that's in that contract is guaranteed by a bank, then it ain't going to get signed.
So that's the issue. It's the source of the funds.
That's the main issue. Yeah, that's the main issue, and hopefully that will get addressed. I've not spoken about. I'm the first time been spoken about. But that's the crux of the matter. That's probably 85% of what it's all about.
And was that completely unexpected? The fact that it wasn't guaranteed by the contract?
I thought so, but we'll see. I mean, we're still talking. I think the lawyers are going to talk again today. All the lawyers, our lawyers, and everybody else's lawyers are going to talk.
At least someone's making money.
Yeah. Well, it's a story of life, that is, isn't it? The lawyers will speak, but afterwards they will. Hopefully we'll come away with some accommodation to give everybody the comfort level they need.
How long do you think Tyson has in terms of his patience before moving on?
Couple of days.
Really?
Because he's going to want it. Because we're going to get to the stage where he'll want to fight. And I know Bob Arum in the States is talking about if he wants to fight in the States, that'll have to be in July. So this will have to be settled very, very quickly, one way or another.
So all this talk of August 14th, Saudi Arabia, that's wildly premature.
No, it's not. All these things can happen, providing that Tyson Fury is happy with the terms and happy with and his comfort, the comfort level he requires is there. If it's there, then it's a no-brainer.
It's not long after the Olympics, though. It's something we talked about before. It would enable McCracken to be in Joshua's corner.
They were talking about the 7th, weren't they? The 7th of August originally, which was the Olympics, and UFC got big pay-per-views that night, so that'd be a bit crazy things to do. But no, we were, that 14th, I think everybody's cool with that day.
And you've obviously got Joe Joyce and Alexander Usyk waiting for their WBO interim title fight. Is there any way that can go ahead? No, not until Joshua Fury's agreed.
Until this is done, because if it isn't done, then AJ will have to have his mandatory against Usyk.
It must be difficult, not just for Joshua and Fury, because that's the main fight everyone's talking about, but for, their kind of collateral damage, Joyce and Usyk, waiting in the
Well, they are, but it's easy. I mean, it's a choice that the guys make. I mean, if Usyk becomes if they order AJ against Usyk, if Tyson and AJ doesn't happen, and they order, which they will order, AJ to fight Usyk, if he fights Usyk, then the good thing is that Joe will go in as the mandatory challenger.
Now, we've talked about Tyson Fury, who's one of your more recent world champions. Your most recent is Sonny Edwards, who was crowned very recently in a really, really good performance. I think a lot of people were predicting he'd win, but in the fashion that he did, not so many. How impressed were you with what he achieved?
I thought he had a real tough fight before the fight, because the Mathala, he was ranked number 1 best heavyweight. Best flyweight.
He hit that well.
He was ranked number 1 best flyweight, and quite rightly so. And I thought it was a really tough job. But Sonny, I've got to tell you, I mean, it was an outstanding performance of boxing. The art of hitting and not being hit. And he won every round. For me, it was a total shutout. I thought that's how well I thought he won the fight. And it was an amazing performance, and that's up there with some of the best performances over the last few years. To beat the calibre of the guy that he fought.
How pleased were you, not just with the performance in the ring, but his general demeanour throughout fight week? He seemed to handle the pressure and the spotlight incredibly well.
He did. I mean, there was a lot of pressure on him, and he did handle it well. And not only did he handle that well, since he's won the title, he's handled that side of it well too. He's a very intelligent guy. He's got a great boxing brain, and he knows his boxing. He's a student of boxing. That's what I like about Sonny. You talk to him about boxing, and he's like a bit like a Mike Tyson from that perspective. Mike Tyson knows his boxing.
Without the baggage.
Certainly without all that crap. Yeah, but I think he's a really, really good ambassador for the sport, and I think he's brilliant for British boxing, what he's done.
Do you know how many world champions you've promoted? Has anyone in the office, added it up for you?
No, I don't know. It must be a lot now.
Well, if anyone from your team's listening in, there's a job for later in the week.
There's a lot over the years.
And Sonny Edwards, obviously, pinnacle of his career so far. His brother Charlie Edwards has won a world title in his own right. When will we see him back in action?
Well, they were due to fight on the same card, so that didn't happen. So, got to find out when he's going to be ready. I don't see him being out until July now.
Okay.
If then, we have to look at the date and see what's what.
What have you got in the pipeline in terms of shows? Obviously, Daniel Dubois, Bogdan Dinu is not too far away.
Just waiting to finalise our dates for July, and I'm hoping I'm going to get that done in the next couple of days.
I've just been informed by a credible source you've got 148 world champions so far.
Right, that's not bad, is it?
But apologies for interrupting.
I'm looking forward to the 149.
Yeah.
No, we should have our July date. So it's taken longer because obviously you've got this situation with the Euros. There was a lot of stuff going on, with the TV companies, with the Breakaway Champions League, and then there was going to be the Premiership wanting to roll over their deal with BT and Sky, and so trying to get everybody to focus on boxing was a bit difficult at the time. But we're getting there now.
So Dubois Dinu, that's a big show coming up, and I believe fans are going to be in attendance for that one.
Yeah, we're only allowed in 1,000 fans, but it's something, and hopefully there'll be some atmosphere there, moving in the right direction.
And what other kind of big shows? I know you can't tell us the dates, but what other big shows have you got in the pipeline?
We've got the 25th of June. Got a really good little show there lined up, so I think everybody's going to be happy with that one. And then just say once we've got our July dates, we'll be announcing them.
Everyone's going to be interested in the light heavyweights you've got in your stable. You know, some of the very best light heavyweights in the country and potentially on the world scene as well. Will any of them fight each other anytime soon? So Callum Johnson, Lyndon Arthur, Anthony Yard.
Anthony Yard and Lyndon Arthur are both got a fight each, because obviously the gap they've had since they fought each other, they're going to have a fight each. If they come through their respective fights, they will have a rematch in the autumn.
So their fights each will be this summer, presumably?
Yeah.
And Callum Johnson, now he's back. He got that explosive win against Emil Markic. Everyone was very pleased to see him, maybe not in the first round, but certainly in the second. How close is he now to getting that world title shot, that second world title shot?
You know, we're working on it, but I'm not going to let him sit around on his backside. We'll have him out again. He'll fight sometime in July 2 when we got the date.
Good stuff. I wanted to ask you a bit more of a sensitive subject, not personally to you, but just generally. Ryan Garcia, we recently saw withdraw from a fight with Javier Fortuna because he was quite open about it, said he was struggling with his mental health, needed some time away from the sport. We then saw Austin Ammo Williams do something similar. He was supposed to be on the Canelo undercard this weekend, just gone. And similar reasons, just wanted to take some time away. I just wanted to get an idea of what you felt about that and how good it is that fighters now in a very macho sport are willing to come forward and admit, when they're being troubled in this way.
Well, I think it's very good they do that, because the last thing you want to be doing if you're not feeling right, your mind's not on it, your head's not into it. The last thing you want to be is going in the ring and letting somebody punch you in the head. You certainly don't need that, and it's very important that when you do fight that you're not just 100% physically fit, you've got to be 100% mentally there. And there's no one bigger than Tyson Fury who can tell you the dangers and the problems that leads to, and the slide, the downside of the slide that you can have in your life. He had it. He hit rock bottom, and thankfully, I think he's been one of the sort of most vociferous, and obviously speaks with having gone through the pain of all that, suicidal at one time, to come through that and say that if you do have mental issues, you need to get them dealt with. He's been great for the mental health campaign, certainly in this country, and I think he's been fabulous for not only boxing but for sport. We got a lot of letters came in when Tyson came out and talked about that. A lot of letters that were sent here, obviously for Tyson, with people who, were so grateful that he came out and said, if you're this big macho guy, you can say it. You can go out there and tell people it can affect anybody, that if you do have that problem, go to help. If you bust your hand up, you break your hand, you're going to have a car. You go to the hospital, you have a cast point. If you've got a problem with your eye, you go and see an optician. Your tooth, you go and see a dentist. If you've got a mental issue, go and do something about it. Why wouldn't you do something about it? Go and see a doctor.
But that's the interesting analogy. So when you get a physical injury in boxing, as long as you've got the right team behind you, you'll probably be booked in to see a specialist, get a scan by the next day. Do you think the support structure's there in boxing generally, particularly in this country, if someone's struggling with their mental health?
Well, I think first thing is with mental issues. Normally, the people around. If you talk about a boxer, they're going to be the first to know. Their family, they live with them, so their family are going to know. They're going to address it. And if you've got a manager and you've got a trainer, if they're worth their salt, they will know that there's a problem and they will help you address it. And in this day and age, I don't think it's difficult finding the help. I think it's the difficult thing is acknowledging that you need help. That's the problem. Help's there to be given. It's acknowledging that you need help.
And can the rest of us in boxing make it easier for people to open up and ask for help?
Do. I'm not going to go into some of the things that happen with some of the people, fighters that I know, people who are not fighters. Where we've given help. I can speak. My youngest brother, Mark, he committed suicide. He jumped off of a balcony. He became schizophrenic. So I know what it can be, and I know that we tried. You tried to help. I'd done a lot as best as I could as my family did, to support him. But I did the best I could was to get him into a. I was lucky enough because financially get him into the Priory at one stage. He was in there, but what he needed was time. He needed, I didn't give him the time I should have given him, because all I was concerned with was my business and running around and doing this, and it's a 24/7 business. You've got to give people time. So if looking back on that, anybody who needs help must say they need help, and obviously the people around them will hopefully step up to the plate and help them.
Completely.
Guide them in the right direction.
Couldn't agree more. Now, I wanted to ask, we found out a couple of weeks ago that Barry Hearn at Matchroom is stepping aside to an extent. I think he's going to be retained in a consultancy role, and Eddie Hearn becomes the new president of the company. Have you given any thought, maybe not because of that, but just generally, about what will happen when you eventually decide to retire?
He's a much older man than me. I'm not looking to retire at the moment. I've got too much enthusiasm. Look, my boys work in the business with me, and they've learnt a lot. They're very bright, and George is the CEO here. He's done extremely good job with the business over the last few years. Francis and Henry also work very hard in the business, and carving out their little niches in what they're doing in boxing. So when the time is right, if I've got a need to hand over the reins completely, I'll do it. But I'll work with them as on a partnership basis anyway. Now it's not like I come in and this is what we're doing. We have discussions and work out between us what we're doing. So
it's not like the TV series Succession, where all your offspring will be scrapping over the family silver.
I would dread that. I mean, listen, I never wanted them involved in the business in the first place. They're in the business, so they're in it, and I'll do all I can to help them and support them. But having said that, they're their own men, and they've got their own ideas, and they'll do things obviously they feel their way, and there'll be a learning curve. They'll do some right things, they'll do some wrong things, as everybody does in life. We're not all geniuses as some people think they are. We here it's pretty much of a team effort, and it's not just the family, it's the people who work here as well. We've got some really good, brainy, loyal people who work at Queensberry, and it's a great team, and that's sort of shown, I think, over the last few years, and certainly the last year with the COVID restrictions, how everybody's pulled together to make things work.
And if and when it is time to take the next step in your life, what one piece of advice will you hand down to whoever it is that takes over?
Follow your gut instinct.
Served you well?
It has, and it hasn't, because there's times where I've not followed my gut.
Right.
I wish I had. So I think you get your first your feeling about something or somebody. I think that's the way you go.
Brilliant. Really appreciate the time, Frank. It's always a pleasure.
Great to see you, Dan.